The Davis Tax Committee has concluded 5 years of work with several recommendations for the country's tax policy framework. Joining us to unpack some of that is Mazars Tax Consulting Director David French. David, thanks so much for your time today. Goodness, it's been 5 years?
Almost.
Yeah, almost 5 years. And how significant has this work been?
That depends on how long you want me to bore you with technical details. But we'll try and keep it short.
Yeah.
The work is significant in the long term. It's all about policy. It's all about where South Africa wants to go, where it must go with the various taxes. So significant, yes. Whether we'll get any short-term, let's not call it benefits, but results, maybe not, because it is much more around the policy and the longer term where we're looking towards.
Yeah, and we'll look at some of the recommendations that have come up over the past few years. But in terms of what actually happens with the work that the committee has done, these are mere recommendations, right, that go to Treasury?
That's correct, yes. In fact, they've gone already. The committee is an advisory committee to the minister, so everything has been seen by the minister and his team before it's even released to the public. And the team at Treasury who look at tax policy will be taking this into consideration as they go forward each year with what do we need to do for our system to improve it, how do we help out with getting things right.
All right, so let's look at some of the more interesting, or at least the more talked about aspects. VAT has been on everybody's lips, particularly with the increase that we saw in this year's budget. What does the Davis Tax Committee say about VAT?
They say we've got a good system. They say we shouldn't tamper too much with the system. They go contrary to a number of people in regards to the basket of zero-rated foodstuffs, but that corresponds with what they say about the system. It's simple. The foodstuffs, we've got to be careful opening the basket too wide because it benefits the people who spend more on it, and the poor can't spend on the basket. It benefits the people who can spend more because they spend more. So should we not be looking more at collecting the tax and targeted relief for the poor?
Okay. Rather than expanding the basket too far.
That's correct,
I
yes.
understand. Wealth tax, that's been on everybody's lips for the past few years, of course, and we know that on the one hand, there are those who say that we need it, are quite adamant, but the committee is saying on the one hand that we have disturbing levels of inequality that need to be dealt with, and our tax system needs to look at that, but says that we're not ready for a wealth tax.
I'm so relieved, yes. Not because I don't want to pay a wealth tax, but because it's an incredibly complex thing to do. And the committee recognized that. And they said we need to prepare ourselves for it if we're going to do it. They recognized we do have certain wealth taxes already, the estate duty, transfer duty to an extent, donations tax, and the CGT, in fact, helps a little bit as well. But to put into place a wealth tax that looks at a continuous wealth and continuous taxation of increases in wealth is incredibly complex to do. We've already shied away from it in a way through the CGT system and the complexities in CGT, indexation, because it's just so difficult to put into place.
Why?
Administratively, number one. To track things. The committee suggested that from 2020 that we should be collecting information on our balance sheets of all taxpayers over the tax threshold. I've got to get this right because there's all registered taxpayers, but only a few, well, not a few of them, a number of them are over the threshold. Collecting the information on the balance sheet of these people, let's call it in real time. Now, I've been 25 years as an accountant, 22 years in tax practice. I get to a tax balance sheet on a cost basis and I go cold every year. Imagine the person who works in an office who has to do this, and they have to do it at value every year. They have to revalue all their assets every single year. Now, all the committee is asking for is that we do that to collect the information, and that's already scaring me. Imagine doing that so that you be taxed on that increase every year. That is what eventually might come.
Would you say overall that the committee has fulfilled its mandate?
I must admit I haven't read every report in detail, but overall my impression is yes. They've given us some good ideas, they've given us some areas where improvement can be made, they've looked at a wide variety of different areas, and they've given to the minister what the minister needs to move forward, what his team needs in order to plan the next few years of tax changes.
We'll leave it there. Thanks for your time today, Mazars Tax Consulting Director David French.